A growing group of renters in Ontario are refusing to pay rent, with some of their so-called strikes dating back to last summer. A march was held yesterday near the site of several buildings that residents say are in dire condition. They're also angry with above-guideline rent increases being used by landlords. While Ontario does set a limit for rent increases, landlords can apply to raise it higher for renovations or repairs. For more on this, we're now joined by Sharlene Henry. She is the co-chair of the York South-Weston Tenants Union and has been on a tenant rent strike since last June. We reached her today in Toronto. Sharlene, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Sharlene, you attended a protest in North York yesterday to support improvement of conditions and rent hikes in that area. You've been striking since June. How's that gone for you?
It hasn't been easy, I'll be very honest. We started our rent strike at 33 King Street back on June 1st of 2023. And at that time, we would have never thought that we would still be on a rent strike for 11 months. But we've held strong as a collective in our building, holding strong against AGIs and our landlord Dream Unlimited, with about 150 to 160 tenants right now participating in our specific building.
So explain to me why it is you're striking.
So our rent strike started out a lot about frustration. Our building here at 33 King has the most amount of above guideline increases, but in our building, we all call them AGIs. We use the acronym. We know it well. We know what it is and why they do it. Our landlord does capital repairs on the building. Once we hear digging and drilling, we know, oh boy, here comes another one. And people are just tired and frustrated. I use an example of 2021 when the Ford government announced to Ontario there will be no rent increases due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our buildings still received notices for 3% rent increases that year. And people were flabbergasted. Like, why? Why are we still getting them? And the loophole of that was there was a rent freeze for everyone else. But if the building applied for an above guideline increase, there would be a 3% rent increase for the folks living in that building. And that included us in our building. So a lot of frustration was brewing over years with the tenants in this building.
Now, Sharlene, to be fair, we don't have the response of your landlord or any of the other landlords who might be involved in this strike here. But I'm very curious as a tenant, what's the day-to-day like when you're refusing to pay rent for you?
It's not an easy day-to-day. I am the co-chair of the York South-Weston Tenant Union, and we have a tenant association that's umbrellaed under the tenant union in this building. So it's not an easy day. It's not a hostile environment, I would say, but it is where you're very aware of your surroundings and what you're doing and your coming and goings. And I'm pretty sure the property management is very aware of what I do, when I participate in a protest, when we have a phone zap, when we do different things in the community about the rent strikes. I'm pretty sure they're very aware. I'm sure all of them know my face and my name.
Sharlene, we've had so many housing announcements from particularly the federal government, but also we're hearing from provincial governments as well in the last few weeks in particular. I'm wondering, you have your eyes on the budget tomorrow. Do you feel any of the announcements that have been made, or is there anything that is being done, do you think, to help your situation and others who are in your situation?
All in all, I don't think that the announcements help the average renter in Ontario or Canada. Through this journey, I've met people from all across this country and this province, and even the city of Toronto, that are going through the exact same thing that I'm going through in even worse conditions, where people are just living day to day, paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet, making a very low wage, just something a few bucks above minimum wage, and trying to survive. It's really hard to start a life, be in retirement, start a family, when you're not making enough money and you feel like your housing can just vanish at any time, because we know that our units can be rented for far more than what we're paying. People who've been around in a building for a long time are under what they call a rent-controlled building. But once that person vacates that unit, the unit can go for anything above $2,500 in the city of Toronto. And that's not one bedroom. 2 and 3 bedrooms are harder to find. So people are just struggling and trying to make ends meet. And in my building specifically, I'll say I know the ins and outs of my building. I pretty much know every tenant who lives here. They have intimate conversations with me because they realize that I'm here, I'm fighting, we're fighting together. And they tell me things like, we need to win this because I don't know where my rent is going to come from if it keeps going up at the rate that it's going up. So it's a matter of survival now for a lot of folks. And it's not just us. It's many people across the city. We've heard from people across the country as well that's saying, you're fighting for all of us and keep going.
Sharlene Henry, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Sharlene Henry is the co-chair of the York South-Weston Tenants Union and a rent striker since last June.